Okay, yeah, hello, this is Brendan, and again with the video. Now I'm in Shanghai, China, and previously in videos, maybe 2 or 3 ago, you saw I was in Cambodia. So you probably think I'm rich. Maybe I should just let you think that, but it's not true. I have to do some work over here, and you think, oh, but if you have to fly around to do work, come on, fess up now. You must, have some money. Well, they paid, and they don't even pay that much. They pay, no, they actually pay pretty well. I get paid to do my work, but yeah, unfortunately, won't be flying around on my own accord. If I could, I wouldn't be flying here. I'd be flying to, Europe or something. Or maybe not with the, the current migrant crisis. But, yeah, sorry about that. That's not good, I guess. Maybe I shouldn't laugh about it. Well, anyway, I just want to go over this painting real quick. I had saved a bunch of footage of me working on the black and white version here. Some might call this value painting. And what do we get done here is we make sure that all the shade and the light are done correctly. What happens if you just do a sketch and then you start to directly paint into this sketch? What's going to happen is a lot of people can get really confused with these values. If you look over on the right hand side here, just like I did in the last video, the one just before this one, if you go up all the way to the top here with the color, that's called full saturation. And you know what? I keep wanting to do this myself. Let's do it right now. Just cause. That's why. Because. Alright, I'm going to take a brush. I do this all the time. Talk about values. I'm afraid people don't get it. Because values affect... color saturation affects values too. So let's go to purple. I'm just going to go down the line here. And then we'll go to some blue. Right, and this is all fully saturated. For example, if I come down here, that's a light saturation of blue, and if we go up even higher, that's a lighter saturation. So it gets more towards white. Full saturation means we have, the most amount of intensity that it will allow us. Oh, wait, those last two were not a full saturation. Okay, yeah. So we do this with the green and this, and real quickly now with the yellow. And that, whatever you want to call it, reddish color. Okay, so we'll go and desaturate this and see what happens. Look at that. Each and every one of them, when it comes to value, they have exactly the same value, or at least according to the software. I don't know if you're on the, if you're on like Photoshop or something, but I think we're in an RGB. Yeah, that's an RGB environment. So at least I can say with RGB, this is what happens, right? If you're in the CMYK or CYMK, I forget how they say it. I don't know if it's the exact same phenomenon. I will assume the answer to that question is yes, because this is, what I'm dealing with on a daily basis, and this is the kind of problem when I'm painting. It's not my full-time job or anything, but I deal with this every day, and that's basically how I feel. So what does that mean? Let's get out the color black and paint it next to there. Oops, on the wrong layer. It's not black and it's not white. What exactly is this color? If I select it, look at that, isn't that interesting? It's right dead between. If you look over here, when I select that color, it's almost right dead between. Not dead between, but almost. Or is it? It's hard to tell because the colors might play an illusion on my eye. But it's almost just right in the middle between black and white. So if you have a fully saturated color, and as far as I know, that that is, I don't know, maybe could a color be even more saturated than this? It's on a computer screen. It's not reality, right? So some things you have to take for granted or just take it for what it is. But we're dealing with software, so this is what we get. Well, basically, if you have a full saturation of color, that's what happens. Now, why this is incredibly important is when you're going to paint and you say, oh, I want a really bright neon light here, right? This painting here, this work I'm doing here, it's not very complete. So I hope that you can make it out. Let me just zoom in and kind of explain a bit. These here are supposed to be like windows this area here. So you can see these are cars going down the road, and this is like a future science fiction kind of place, right? So everything seems to be made out of metal, and you have this flying spaceship up here. So here's like a car going down. There's that's a little sign and a bridge going over. Just like in modern day, you have some bridges going over highways and stuff. And what's neat is on the side here, these shiny things. These are all windows that light is coming out of, and I'm thinking that people are in there, you know, maybe their offices, or maybe people are having dinner, like restaurants and stuff like that, while the cars go down the highway here. So it's kind of like a future science fiction type of scene. Now for the light here, what if I were to say, and also over here, this square one here, this is a neon light, right? So what if I were to say it's like a, you know, an advertisement in the future or something. So if and so now I'm going to say I want to have a really bright super red neon kind of light coming out there. Well, if you do that, you just got to remember that that light, even though it looks like it stands out to you very much, when you go to desaturate it, actually it might not be bright. It might not look like what, you know, light is supposed to look like, because technically speaking, let's take away the color here. If you desaturate it, then it should look white, because light is supposed to have whiteness to it. It have a little bit of color to it, but it should look lighter than everything else. So as we just saw here, a fully saturated color, it's actually kind of gray in the value scheme, right? So we don't want to do that. What you do is to make it look red, bright red. You might use a tiny little bit of red in there. Yeah, like that. Use a tiny little bit of red, but around it, make sure that it's all nice and bright and white. Let me go back a few steps. Okay, good. So aside from that, and I get tired of talking about values. If you don't get it, then, I mean, you know, read a book. Not to be rude, but I've talked about it so much. If it's confusing, then maybe I can't explain it well. That's not a problem. I feel like I understand it well enough for me, so I'll probably leave it at that for my own selfish purposes. The other thing with this was just that let's take away all these colors. I spent a lot of time you know, getting all the values where they belong, the shadows, you know, shade and the light and stuff like that. And even this is a little bit incomplete. There's a lot of stuff to do here. Like I was just, actually the most important parts I was just talking about. When you work on a painting like this, let me go all the way back. I saved a lot of my layers. This was the very first drawing, right? So I started off like a sketch, a thumbnail. I just wanted to show just lay things down. Where is my perspective? What's going on? I made these buildings. They're kind of let me get a new layer here. I have these structures here. They're actually, you know, useless, but it's science fiction, right? So it doesn't matter. Maybe there's some kind of like future office building, or maybe it's like a power station or something like that. And I knew there would be like some kind of flying ships here. And at the time, I didn't know this was going to be a highway. I just thought it'd be some kind of like, you know, lit up power structure. I knew that I wanted to have some light coming from down below, emanating up, because I'd seen some other stuff, and I thought that effect was really cool, where you have the light coming from below, radiating up. Excuse me. And so then, after that, I started to color in behind it, and this was just a very, very basic kind of idea of where I want my major colors to be. And so you can see I started the light radiating up from this area down here, and I had the source light from the sky to be this one like radiating beam of light. And the reason for that could be anything. Maybe you're on a foreign planet. Maybe that's light reflecting off of rings around the planet or something like this, right? Or it could just be a weird day where, you know, you got a beam of light for absolutely no reason. The point is, I thought it looked cool. So, you know, that was just laying down my base values of where I want the major shadows and the major light to be. Then I started to go into detail a lot, as you can see, and I washed away all of those original sketch lines and went over it with a lot of, you know, I started to get painterly at this point, just started painting it in. And this was all in black and white, just staying in black and white. Another layer, basically just doing more detail here. And then finally came up with this, got to this stage. This is the finished black and white version. So now what I'm doing is I'm working on the colors, and I just started this. I don't know. I could even just like erase this and completely change all the colors. I'm just playing with it to see what works and what doesn't. And on top of a color layer, it's nice to have another extra layer where I can get some some extra light out of it, because when you do the painting like this, it does get a little dark, because we're taking a black and white to begin with, and then we're adding more values to it. As we just proved here, colors have darkness to them, right? When you change it into pure black and white, you can see colors have darkness to them. So when you're taking a black and white to begin with, and then you add color to it, you're basically adding darkness with every every little bit of color. Now to fix that, we can go down to this layer here. Let me get rid of all this stuff, and I'll show you how I did this in a minute too. We can go down to this black and white layer and lighten it up, right? So it looks lighter that way. Although I still have to do some work to get it where it belongs. For now, I don't mind it being dark like that. Now let me tell you, how did I do this? It was very easy. I'll even do it again right now. Here I am on the this is the black and white finished layer. All the other layers are turned off. And now what I'm going to do is add a new layer, and then on this new layer, go up here and just select area. And you can do this in Photoshop too. This works. It should work in like any good software. If your software you're using doesn't have this, don't use it. Just stop using it. Go get another software. Because it's very, very common. It's like old. Even when Photoshop first came out, they had this. So I add the new layer, and I go up to the mode here, and I select multiply. By default, it's on normal, right? So if it's on normal, let's see what happens. What do you expect to happen? When I paint on it, it just paints over, right? So if I wanted to go in here and paint this little ship, this little flying ship in here, that happens. But what happens when I change this layer, which is on top of the black and white layer, what happens when I change it to multiply? Look at that. It blends itself in, and I don't know how I don't know what the magic is. I don't even know why they choose the word multiply, but this is what happens. It blends itself into the black and white. It blends into the values basically. So that's really cool. I'm just going to delete that. I'm going to leave this on the multiply effect. I'll bring it down to again, this is I mean, you just see it over and over again. Here is a fully saturated red, and look what happens as you just saw when I painted it. Does that look natural to you at all? No. It's actually just really, it's too dark, it's too bright, it's just way too much. So let's go back down to, and I don't really want to make this ship that color anyway. Let's make it like kind of blue. Yeah, and I'll bring it down, the values down very, very low. I'm even going to come all the way down here, because remember, I still have like, excuse me, I still have this the black and white layer too, so the values I add are going to be like very strong. I do actually have a little bit of a cold, so I keep saying excuse me. Sorry about that. And this video, I mean, it's not going on. I'm done here. I just want to go. That's pretty much everything so far I showed you. So I'm just going to finish doing a quick example of this this ship here. So I color it in. Just like that. It goes right over the black and white just so beautifully, so perfectly. It's nice. And I can still erase. I can come in here. I have the opacity down on my eraser. I still erase the parts. Yep. Just like that. Or if this was a blue sky that I had already done, then I would just flip to the other color. Not erase, but paint over. You can always just fix your mistakes somehow or another. Now the one thing that's not good about this, if I change to another color, let's say I change to green right now, maybe it's actually a green sky and I start painting green. Now I notice I want to go back to that blue, so I select this blue. Actually, it's a different blue now because we have all these values mixed in with the multiply layer. What I do for that is I temporarily turn off the black and white layer, the painting layer. Now that's the color I was painting with, and I'll select that color, and then I can turn this back on. And in order for that to work, you also need, well, yeah, I guess you could do it without anything, but it's nice if you have a white background all the way on the base layer there. It's kind of helpful. So now that I have that blue ship, and if that doesn't look so hot, well, obviously, because it's all just one color, so there's probably some work to do there. You go in and make this part white. And what about the front mirror part there? Or this is like glass, right? So that should have some shiny stuff coming off of it. Actually, it should probably just be kind of that original gray color. And you could have a little, I don't know, reflection coming off it. That's too dark though. Back here. Yeah, something like that. Something in contrast. You have a bright white against the other thing. Okay, and then what else? Let's bring this. Yeah, because the whole thing is basically just you know, it's basically just that one color, so it looks kind of ridiculous. Make this bottom part actually black. So by making it this gray color, it should show itself as being black. That. There's some erasing here. And that's about it. Now it looks a little bit more like, a little bit more realistic. Again, there's just too much blue everywhere, so I can go in and maybe change this part back to a grayish color, or black or gray. And maybe that middle part, see whatever available color I have here, change into this. Something like that. Right. Maybe even this part will have kind of like that. You can have that color tint to the window there. Yeah, so it starts to look a little bit more like a ship. But as you can see, I'm painting directly over that, and I don't have to worry about doing shading, lighting, or anything. It's all done. I'm just coloring in different spots. And you can make another layer over it, and maybe come in with some white highlights here, right? Turn the opacity down and do a little bit more shading and lighting here, something like that, right? Maybe do a little reflective lighting down here. You can just do all kinds of stuff to enhance it on another layer. And when it's finished, that's what I will do. First I'm going to color everything in, then I'm going to add another layer and do all kinds of little touch-up work here and there. So that's basically how that works. You get your base layer with the value painting. Look, that's kind of cool. You can see the ship when I move it too. First you do your black and white value painting, then you add a layer and you change the layer mode to multiply. Right? Let's change that back to normal. See, there's the normal way that if I just painted it without the multiply effect on. And we go back, yeah, but the multiply helps it to blend in with that. That's all I had to say. Just today review how I made this, starting off with a sketch and then color it in step by step. I did some experiments with adding colors to it here. That didn't work out, so I went back to black and white and decided to do this effect. And this is where I am now. Still got a lot of work to do. I'm just deciding on the overall base colors I want to use. And maybe in the next video I'll show you some more of the detail on this as it starts to come around. Actually, I like that ship I made. Yeah, I might use that too. Okay, see you in the next video. Have a good day. Happy drawing. And yeah, don't forget to keep making some new drawings. Send me some messages, and I'd love to see what kind of work you're doing. If you put it up on DeviantArt or wherever, let me know. We'll see you later. Bye.